Party people, prepare yourselves.
Oh yeah, we're slamming, baby. Cam here right now on Steel Savage Radio, WNCTANZ.com, and 90.3 FM, Megavoltage, Red Radio Rock. That's what we're here to do to you here today, tonight, tomorrow, 25-8. The bestest, mostest, baddest, hardest show on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. On your station at Rock Station, Steel Savage Radio. Keep on rocking and cold cocking. SSR, baby. Yeah. Ow!
This is the lunch hour.
That one felt like my dad.
What's up, Radio Land Podcast land all across the earth. It's the notorious, it's the rebellious, the man of the hour, Stu Michelle, Navajo Rambo Bobby Steele, coming against you live, loud, and proud on the station that rocks the motherfucking nation. And I'll tell you what, guys, we have a house full here today. Yes, we're pushing over 17,000 people coming to you guys live right now on the station that rocks the nation. Without further ado, guys, on the line here, we got Stu and we got Michelle from the Satanic Temple, the Arizona Chapter. What's going on, guys?
Hey, thanks for having us.
Hi, how's it going?
Awesome. Good. Now, is that the best intro, or can you guys do like a cool satanic intro there, right?
That was pretty good. That was pretty satanic. I like your enthusiasm.
Yeah, I used to do podcasts and stuff myself back in the day, so your intro was very enthusiastic, and we're happy to be here.
Hell yeah, guys! You know, it's an honor to have you guys on the show. A big, huge honor because just saying the word. Let's just dive right into it. Just saying the word Satan scares a lot of people right off the bat. And to me, that's just kind of like saying Navajo, saying Native Americans back in the 60s and 70s were considered savages. And that was a bad word too, as well. So just saying that there. Now, Satan, how did you guys come upon that? I should say.
How did we come upon what?
How did you guys find Satan there? How did you guys decide to say, hey, you know what? This is where I want to go here. Everybody has their certain religions they want to go to. What made you guys choose Satanism? Is that what's the proper way to say it? Is it Satanism or Satanist?
Satanism, yeah. And I think if you ask everybody, they're going to have a different story. So Michelle's a longer time Satanist than I am, so she can tell you her story.
Yeah, I came to Satanism in high school. I was, in a really small town, one of the only alternative people, and I didn't have very many friends, so I would spend my free classes in the library. I would do research, and I came across a book. In it were discussions of, occult leanings and stuff, and within its pages, it contained information on the Church of Satan and Anton LaVey. And that was kind of my introduction, and I mean, this is like early 2000s when, dial-up was still a thing. So, I'm like trying
AOL,
to,
right?
yeah, it was AOL. And, I didn't have a printer, so I'm like handwriting, all like the scriptures I could find in regards to Satanism. And, this was long before the Satanic Temple was even an idea. Like, as a solitary Satanist prior to the Satanic Temple, I had a few books that I had read. But, besides that, it was a very, solitary lifestyle, and there was no community around whatsoever, and I didn't know that there were that there were that many other people who felt and thought the same as I did. So when the Satanic Temple came along, at least for me in 2015, it changed everything. It changed what I had known previously about Satanism, and it was an evolution of what I had already previously felt and is now a real thing. So that was my introduction to Satanism back in high school.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and My path's a little different. I mean, I describe it as being a product of the Satanic Panic, which was the era in the 1980s and 90s where people thought that if you listened to heavy metal or played Dungeons and Dragons, you were delving into this evil lifestyle of the occult, and it was heavily criticized in the media. It was very demonized by the public, and I was into those two very things. And you'll find that a lot of guys my age that are around 40 or are adults now, but were kids then. It's kind of like owning the culture, and turning it around. So if someone says, "Oh, you're dabbling in Satanism and all this stuff," and then you kind of take that back and you own it, it kind of loses its power to the people that are giving you that label. And then I got involved in the Satanic Temple because the concept of challenging separation of church and state issues merely by asking to participate in the same rituals and aspects that other people from essentially Judeo-Christian faiths are allowed to do. By putting ourselves into those realms, you kind of expose the hypocrisy you see, and you realize that religious liberty in this country merely means Christian supremacy. So, from early on, I was always into the iconography, and I kind of dabbled, but I really, when the Satanic Temple started, is when I really started self-identifying as a Satanist, and as an attorney, I ended up being the attorney for the Satanic Temple nationally. So now I do some of the lawsuits. There's various lawsuits around the country, and I handle some of those. So I got heavily involved through kind of a career where I was already fighting the government, which to us, the Satan being the ultimate rebel against tyranny, which we see God as the tyrant. I was already kind of in a position for that. So this was a natural progression for me.
Now, when you say that against God there, now, because I guess to certain people, God is Jesus, Jesus is God. Now, is it particularly the dislike to that religion there, or is it because you didn't agree with some of the values they have?
I'd say it's the latter. I mean, to me, when you have a God that's telling you, "I'll only love you if you worship me, and if you don't, I'm going to condemn you to a life of pain and suffering," to me, that's not a God worth worshiping, and that's kind of a domestic violence relationship. I only threaten you to condemn you to pain and suffering if you love me. I mean, that's one of the things that didn't sit right with me. And I also don't like the groveling. Begging for forgiveness for something you haven't done yet, with this original sin concept never sat well for me. So that was kind of the beginning for me where I really didn't like Christianity. I mean, in what we do, yeah. It's not really out of a disdain for Christianity that we do this. This is us forming our own identities for what we do believe in a positive way. So we're not doing this. We're not doing this. Yeah, go ahead.
However, a lot of us do come from religious backgrounds. We've had, religious upbringings with our family, and a lot of it has left a really bad taste in our mouths. A lot of us were traumatized from our religious upbringings. It just didn't really resonate with us, and despite us not feeling that way, we were still kind of forced by our families. So, it's a little bit of both. There's a lot of people who come to us at first because of their dislike for religion, but that's only because of, the years of not being able to agree with the ideology and having that forced upon us in every which way imaginable.
Michelle,
with TS.
Was that with you too as well? You didn't agree with like what Stu was saying? Is that why you chose Satanism there? Because I know you were saying earlier, because you said you grew up in a smaller town there, and you really didn't have a lot of friends there.
For me, you're right. I was very much a loner kind of person, and I grew up Catholic, so I had that religious upbringing, and I was always questioning, even at a young age. And when I began questioning, my mom thought it was a good idea to put me in catechism and confirmation school, and just kind of kept drilling it, hoping that I would change my mind, which only brought up more questions and got me into more trouble for asking these questions.
Yes. Now, people always ask me, why am I having, the Arizona Satanic Temple on the show and stuff like that, And I always tell people, I've been telling people, well, let's learn about these guys. Let's learn about what, exactly they're representing right now. Because, on your website there, you guys adopted a highway that you guys take care of. You guys do food drives, for homeless. And Michelle, you do drives for women who are in prison. You know, I mean, you guys really help the community out there, and a lot of people don't even do that. Who say that they have these Christian type of values.
The Arizona chapter has not done a food drive. The Arizona chapter has a few charitable campaigns. We focus on Menstruate with Satan, which is to give menstrual products to disadvantaged students across schools in Arizona. So we don't necessarily deal with inmates, but we do deal with students. So kids don't miss school if they can't afford menstrual products.
And the concept behind our sort of civil service work is twofold, in my opinion. So the first one is things, charitable, I guess, actions that are kind of ignored. So when you have something like women's rights or, menstrual products, something that's considered icky by the norm, and you don't see things like that, when that's something in the community that's very necessary, we feel like we kind of pick up that slack, where more, traditional, kind of, less, I guess, progressive communities won't even focus on anything like that. But also when it comes to adopting the highway and things like that, there's a lot of people that were ousted by their church or don't adhere to that do want to do good for the community and without God, not doing it for some share in heaven, but just because they want to do it for the community. And essentially the ones that involve the government. So, churches always adopt highways. You see it all over the place, especially in Arizona. So what we do is we make sure that those systems are equal, and making sure that when the Satanic Temple comes, they give us our place at the table with every other religion within the government, because if they don't, it's a violation of the Establishment Clause of the Constitution. They can't just pick and choose which religions they like more. So essentially those kind of things are how some of these lawsuits start, but it's not just for that. It's for the community that people didn't otherwise have.
We have a question here, guys. We have a question here. It says, has the government recognized Satanism as a religion?
So here's the thing with that. It's a complex question. Unfortunately, I can't just say yes or no, but the government, especially the Supreme Court refuses to identify what's a religion and what's not, because if you were to do that, you're going to have Catholics and Protestants trying to vie for who the real Christians are, for example, when there's different sects and denominations, so to speak. So what they've done is there is an IRS test, which is one of the factors where if you pass certain rituals and all this things that religions normally have, you can be identified by the IRS as a tax-exempt church, which we just established ourselves. The unique thing about us is a misconception I'll get rid of right now is we're not theistic. So we don't believe in literal Satan. We believe that all religions are metaphorical constructs. Everyone's an atheist to someone else's religion, but we're just owning that and saying religion's very real, but all of these gods are metaphors. They don't literally exist. So in that, it was something new that we did where we got recognized by the IRS as a non-theistic religion. So the long answer is yes, we are recognized.
Well, you know what? I can see you guys' point there, because you know what? I believe the Native Americans finally was, quote, unquote, considered an American citizen back in 1923. Now, that's a fucked up bullshit when we've been here longer than 1923,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. So, and there's a great example where government recognition is only a small part of whether something's legitimate, right? And things that used to be considered normal and legal, you find out years down the line is horrific, and that changes. So for us, it's like, yeah, we got IRS recognition, but, we're not in this for the fucking tax exemption. We're in this to be an established religion to be able to fight on equal grounds that other religions have in this country.
For sure. Now, Michelle, I want to ask you a question here. Is how did you choose Stu here to be to follow Stu here, as far as you guys joining up here? How did that happen there, Michelle?
Well, it kind of happened on accident. This was a few years back in 2015 when Stu and I were both members of the Satanic Temple Official Forum. Back then it was, maybe 1,000 to 2,000 people within that forum. It's now up to like a whopping 8,000.
I think it was 400 when we were originally in there. There were like 400 people in there.
It was so small. But at the time, our co-founder, Lucien Greaves, made a post requesting if anybody in Arizona would be willing to take up an invocation before a Phoenix City Council meeting. And Stu and I, both living in Arizona, volunteered, and Lucien introduced the both of us. he told me that I need to get in touch with Stu, and he did the same to Stu to talk to me. And we met at a concert, not having met each other prior to that day, but we had plenty of mutual friends between us. But we had first met briefly at a concert, and then he came over to my house one day as I was getting ready for work, and we discussed, are we going to do this? Are we going to go to do this invocation, and are we willing to take whatever happens after that? At the time, we were a little naive. We didn't know how far our invocation would hit the media, and when it did, it became international news. So it was more of like Stu and I, we both completed something that was not done by the Satanic Temple before, and it was a bonding experience where we both handled the media very well. He has strengths that I don't have, and vice versa. So the dichotomy between us works very well in that sense.
Awesome, guys. We're our messages are blowing up over here. Let's get to another question here. We got a question as if someone wants to join in on the mission here, what do they have to do to make that happen?
I'll leave that to you, Michelle.
Somebody would like to join on the mission of the Satanic Temple, what would they need to do to make that happen? Well, there's a few ways. It depends on where that person is located. If they are lucky enough to have a chapter near them, then the best way is to get in touch with that chapter. You can find a list of chapters on the Satanic Temple website. And if they're unlucky and they don't have a chapter anywhere near them, they're welcome to just become a national member. You can sign up for the newsletter, pick out your membership certificate and membership card. And then if they have the time and the interest and the drive, they're welcome to start a chapter in their area themselves. It takes a lot of work. There's a process
to it. What are the requirements, though? What is there a requirement that do you guys screen people and say, hey, you know what, I don't want this person joining. This person fits our stuff like that. Do you guys do that too, or?
I think it depends on what level of involvement they want. So, for instance, there's a lot of people that are supporters. They're not going to identify as a Satanist, but they really believe in what we're doing, and they'd like to, maybe they want to go clean up the side of the highway with one of those campaigns, but they're not going to, stand there and tell their friends and family that they're Satanist or identify with that necessarily. So, with those people, they do certain things. If people want a leadership position or a council position, they have to identify as satanic. We like it when people really do their research, know the difference between the Church of Satan and the Satanic Temple. There's all kinds of book lists and reading lists to make sure that you know what you're getting yourself into, because there are repercussions sometimes if your boss finds out, or you've got kids or something. We don't want people to put themselves at risk of getting disowned or worse. And we want people to come, if they want to join us, to know exactly what this is, not just I saw you guys on TV and we like the T-shirt. You know what I mean? We get a lot of that, so. Yeah. We do have to vet people to make sure they know what they're getting into.
Now, you guys, I'm sure you guys dealt with a lot of stuff that I'm actually going through here right now with all the stuff that I'm getting on my side here. But people, I think a lot of people want to know is some of the stuff that Anton LaVey was talking about. I believe it's the 9 Commandments. Is that correct? The 9 Commandments. Now, is that what the Satanic Temple believes there too as well?
The 9 satanic statements and the 11 rules of the earth. So we have different tenets and different values that we hold almost to canon, and that would be our 7 fundamental tenets, which focus more on bodily autonomy, reason, science. More geared to humanistic values, and then LaVey's philosophy has declared.
Yeah, so in our view, the Church of Satan and Anton LaVey's church essentially, to us, was either a little outdated or it's not what we were looking for particularly. Like we like a lot of his ideas, like psychodrama and a lot of things that he established, but for the times we feel that the Satanic Temple, it matches our values a little more and the way we want to live our life a little more. But to me, they call it the milieu. There was a progression of Satanism that started codified with LaVey, but we were taking it in another direction. People have many different opinions of that. Some people love it, some people hate it. So again, that's why we ask people to know what they're getting themselves into, and if this is a good fit.
We got another question here, guys. It says, I guess this is a straight up question. Do you guys do sacrifices of animals?
No, no. Most modern Satanists are very much against the harming of animals and innocent children. That's just against our values. Our statements one of our fundamental tenets states that the body is inviolable, subject to owners will alone. So that inherently states that everybody has a right to their body. Consent is a very important thing when it comes to relationships between humans. And, why would you hurt animals? Like that does absolutely nothing. We are very much lovers of animals.
Sure.
Yeah. So I would say that rumor is from the Satanic Panic. So you'll always find that whatever minority religion exists in the times, they're always going to accuse them of human and animal sacrifice. That's what they said about the Jews. That's what they said about the Christians when Christianity was new. It's always, fill in the blank of the new guys, and they must be sacrificing people or animals. So that's kind of what we got caught up in, of course.
So basically, you guys kind of just the Satanic Temple is how would you say a branch off of the actual Satanism? Is that how that works, sir?
You can look at it as a denomination. It's an established church of Satanism. I mean, there's the temple, and then there's the church of it. Codified. That's just codified. People can practice the religion as they see fit, but if you're part of the two main codified ones, those are it. And they are different. Some people try to make a rivalry out of it, which people like Michelle and I don't like. And, we find that to be counterproductive to both groups, but. A lot of the values are shared, being non-theistic. That's a big one. Also, don't harm animals. That's in both of them. There's things like that. Okay.
Well, we got another question here, guys. It says, do you guys meet on a weekly basis, and what goes on inside of your meetings? Because some of the people want an actual visual of what you guys do during your meetings there, because I think a lot of people still think you guys are meeting in robes and with the pentagram on the floor, with candles, people walking in formation and stuff. I think that's what people are trying to see if that really happens.
Well, you're describing what would be probably one of our typical rituals, and rituals are sparsely done. They take a lot of emotional investment, they take a lot of effort, and they're usually reserved for special occasions. When we're doing meetings, it's very casual. We try to have council meetings once a month. We have official member meetings online once a month. And then we have casual gatherings at coffee shops, restaurants. Let's go get some food. Let's go watch a movie. It's a very casual atmosphere. And only when we start getting into special occasions like rituals for events and stuff like that, then that's when you see us dressed in our usual robes and costume garb.
Now, is there actual summoning of demons and stuff like that? Because people are scared of that.
So a lot of satanic ritual was kind of really created by the church, because essentially they were writing pornography, the priests were, and they were saying this is what these people do with closed doors. So a lot of the psychodrama and a lot of how ritual started satanically was mocking what they think we do. And to us, ritual is not supernatural. There's no summoning. There's no worshiping any deities. What it is kind of, well, they call it psychodrama, but it's kind of performative. Some people call it cathartic, transformative experience. There's a lot of ritual in the world that has nothing to do with supernaturalism. Like if you go to a graduation, you're going to see a bunch of people in black cloaks. You know what I mean? So
that is true.
Us,
wow.
There's an emotional release. Sometimes we have the one I like to describe as the destruction ritual, where you take a physical item from your house that you've kept around for whatever reason. It could be something an ex-partner gave you, or a father that is deceased, and it just brings you pain whenever you see it. So we ritually destroy it together, throw something in a fire, write a note of something negative that someone told you that you can't let go of. And the idea is to burn that and try to release it. But it has nothing to do with gods and demons. It's just a personal, very earthly mechanism to kind of psychologically, attain something, whether it's freedom from that item or what have you.
Now, again, I think a lot of people also want to know is, but do you guys? I should say you guys. Does the religion from the Satanic Temple there? Is there summoning of demons? Because somebody sent me a message here saying that when you get into the Satanic Bible there, that it really gets into like a lot of gory stuff here. That's what the message sent to me here.
If if they're talking about the Satanic Bible and they're talking about like the last half of the book, then yeah, I mean, I kind of skimmed over that, and it's a bunch of rituals and infernal names and the goetic keys, and it's just it could be seen as a bunch of gobbledygook to some people. Some people prefer not to focus their Satanism on the ritual aspect of it. They want it to be more concrete and focused on non-theistic satanic interpretation. But these demons and these demon names and these rituals, I mean, it's mythology. It's fun. It's fun to try to interpret these creatures or these fictional beings to see how they could fit into our world. So, I mean, if it's brought up in a ritual, it's used metaphorically. Like, it's probably not a real demon popping up anywhere.
The way that I describe it is, if you take any other mythology, people would think it was ridiculous. So say that we were Norse, and people are like, oh, do you hang out with Odin? Do you summon Thor to your meetings? It's like, no, this stuff is mythology. The demons are mythology. Like, all the gods are mythology. We're just owning that and saying this stuff, the metaphorical power of religion cannot be denied. Since the beginning of time, there's been human religion in every culture across the world. There is a place in the human experience for religion. But we're just saying, we know it's mythology. We own it. This is a code of conduct in the community that we enjoy. These are the metaphors that we enjoy. The literature, and that is our religion. There's no
is that
so many supernatural
like
things.
Moses parted the sea? Is that kind of like what Moses parted the sea? And they have him actually pardon the sea, stuff like that, and that guy who lives in a whale. Is that kind of the same type of concept there of what you guys think about some of these rituals that people picture?
Yeah, I mean, these are fairy tales. They're all mythology. It doesn't matter what religion you're part of. To us, it's all mythology across the board, including our own. But that doesn't mean the religion doesn't have value in a place. It's just we think having supernatural and superstitious thoughts is negative to the human mind.
And Satan, I mean, even within Satanism, it can be interpreted in multiple different ways. Some people choose to focus on Satan the beast, the carnal aspect, the goat head, and others choose to focus on Lucifer, the light bringer, the angel, the one who sought knowledge and defied God's orders. There's so many different ways to interpret one icon, and I mean, and none of it's correct. It's all up to a person's interpretation.
Definitely. We got another question, guys. It says, what is the hierarchy of the church, and who determines who the church leader is? How did he determine that? I guess that's what the question is.
So there's the executive ministry is two people. They're the co-founders. They started the Satanic Temple. They live out on the East Coast, Lucian Greaves and Malcolm Jerry. And then from there, there's a very loose hierarchy. There's essentially a council, a national council that helps make policy decisions, like any other religion, really. And then from state to state, there are chapter heads and kind of spokespeople or media liaisons. And then other than that, there's members. So, basically you get these positions by putting in the work, showing that you're serious, showing that you understand it, and that you can be a leader. And then, eventually that's how you get into those positions. So that's pretty much it as far as the hierarchy.
And, we got another question, guys. It's blowing up with you guys. Let's see here. It says, how do you guys define that the hierarchy person there? Was that person voted in, or did you guys choose them, or I think that's what the question is.
The way I describe it is a meritocracy. It's a meritocracy, essentially. So it's, if you do a lot of the work, you show you're serious, then you get the position. It's mostly selected by the council to make sure that people know what this is. A lot of people want a title. A lot of people want to sit there and say they're a high priest of something when they don't even know what the hell it is. So we try to avoid that.
Sure. Okay, so the another question is, what happens if you disagree with the leader? Are you condemned to go to heaven? That's what it says. I thought that's kind of hilarious there. If you disagree with the leader, is there a consequence for that or anything?
No. I mean, there's a loose democracy in that if you have a council, you're going to vote on, different proposals or different campaigns and things like that. And then the National Council vets them. Usually National Council members were chapter heads, so they have the experience of having boots on the ground with this stuff. And it's just a discussion. It's a council.
And I mean, Satanists are very opinionated people. I mean, we all have our different ideals, so there's bound to be disagreements. But in order to work as a group, like Stu said, it's on a voting kind of basis. If there's a proposal that's being brought up and it gets outvoted, then there's reasons for it getting outvoted. And if there's a campaign that one doesn't agree with, no one's forced to share it or to support it. Like, you're welcome to support what you feel is right for you.
Great, awesome, guys, awesome. We have another question here. It says, "What are your thoughts about Aleister Crowley and his teaching with Anton LaVey there?"
So, when it comes to Aleister Crowley, I mean, his group is the OTO, the Ordo Templi Orientis, and they're more of the occultists, and he's got his own thing going on. I think, in my opinion, LaVey, when he wrote the Satanic Bible, especially the end part with the Enochian keys, that was an appeal to the occultists, because that was all the rage in the 60s. They've been around a lot longer than codified Satanism. But, I mean, we don't take much, really, from the Aleister Crowley OTO group. One thing that we do have in common is all of us, all three groups, the Satanic Temple and the Church of Satan and OTO, we all use like the Baphomet imagery that comes from the Alethus Levi Baphomet, which was the reconciliation of opposite symbol for the occult world in the 1800s. And we all kind of have that very loose connection, but other than that, it's totally different.
Okay, Michelle, you're.
Oh, I agree. I mean, it's Aleister Crowley is a different philosophy. We have plenty of allies that are in that camp as well. And I mean, it's interesting how these two groups overlap in a little bit, but they are distinct groups, and that's about it.
Awesome. We got another question here because somebody is bringing up self-indulgence there. Is the Satanic Temple, does that represent indulgence instead of abstinence? I guess that's what they said from the first 9 Satanic statements. I guess that's what I'm getting here.
All right, that is something LaVey wrote. Satan is indulgence instead of abstinence, and despite COS and LaVey not having anything to do with the Satanic Temple, it's not like many of the members weren't influenced by LaVey. Like, personally, I was heavily influenced by LaVey in my earlier years because that's all there was, and with the tenets, they don't exist in a vacuum. It's meant as almost like as guidelines, not as canon. So with indulgence instead of abstinence, even though that is a Church of Satan philosophy coming from LaVey, I agree with it. Satanists need to indulge. That is what we're here for, because this is the only world that we have. So we're going to revel in it. We believe that to deny oneself, natural acts such as sex and all the pleasures that the world has to offer.
Now,
what was that word? It creates a compulsion.
I told you, guys. Now, would you guys, you guys are kind of, there's like it seems like there's 3 different branches of Satanism there. Now, it seems like the Satanic Temple, you guys could actually go on to make a completely different religion name, but why keep it with Satanic there?
Well, to us, there's no other word for it. I mean, a lot of people are like, why aren't you humanists? Why don't you call yourself this or that? But to us, there's only one word for it, and that is Satanism, because our archetypal metaphor that we follow is the ultimate rebel. And in the Western world, when you're living in a monotheism, when there's only two deities, and it's God and the devil, to us, the question was, if you're going to fight authority, it's fighting God, because the things that I mentioned earlier, and the one true rebel that can identify as the ultimate rebel, it would be Satan when it comes to our mythology in the Western world. And that is kind of what bases our entire religion, is the rebellion of this, against arbitrary laws.
That actually kind of comes up here.
Fighting against arbitrary authority.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, fighting against arbitrary authority, despite knowing that we might lose. Despite the odds, knowing that we have entire armies against us, we're fighting against the very authority of God, yet we choose to follow our own path regardless. Now that, in its sense, is truly satanic, which is why we could not call ourselves anything else.
It kind of sounds like more like a Buddhism, right? I mean, believe in yourself, be strong.
Buddhism, I use that example sometimes because Buddha is more of a path and a teacher than a god.
Yes.
So, I mean, there is that similar aspect where to us, Satanism is a path. They call it the left-hand path. It's a way of life that we've chosen that's against the grain. And with Buddhism, his teachings were a path that you can live by which they found to be enlightening. So in that aspect, you could say it's similar.
Yeah, that kind of goes
Buddhism is also a really good example. Buddhism is also a really good example that I like to bring up because people always like to mention, well, how can you call yourself a religion when you don't have a god? And, Buddhism, being that Buddha was never a god, and it's a philosophy and a way of life, that's what I like to akin Satanism to. Just wanted to add that.
Yeah, sure. Now, that goes over to why our real discussion is going to come in here is the popularity that's growing on the reservation there, on the Navajo reservation, especially around the Shiprock area and the Four Corners area there. More and more I'm hearing you guys talk here. More and more, I'm making the connection here. A lot of stuff you guys are talking about here right now, you guys can actually, would be Native Americans in today's society as, quote, Satanists, right?
Well, I mean, to me, it makes perfect sense because when the Europeans came with Catholicism, they destroyed a lot of the native populations through that religion. Like you said, the savages, we're going to make sure that everyone worldwide isn't a savage. We're going to do this through this religion. It makes perfect sense to me that after all of that happened for, hundreds of years, that people would be kind of craving to reject that culture that was forced upon them.
Definitely. Michelle, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think the same, in that, having Christianity just forced upon us when, especially when Native Americans, they had their own gods, their own philosophy, their own religion, and to have that basically wiped out and forced to assimilate into Christianity, I believe that has probably left a really bad taste in that community. So,
yes,
I see anyone that is not Christian, gets labeled a Satanist in some way or another. Like if you don't follow God's teaching, you're a Satanist. And, that's what they like to lump us into. And that's what they've done over centuries, with many cultures, the pagan traditions and Native American traditions. Like it's just being wiped out. So,
now,
for people to finally take ownership of
the reservation, guys. There's an epidemic on the reservation. I hate to cut you off, Michelle, but this kind of comes into my what I'm actually going to start talking about is the missing people. Right now, Native American people are the most missing people in the country there, as far as a racial group there. I mean, our minorities there for Native American women are through the roofs, but nobody knows about it. Tucson's number 1, Albuquerque's number 2, and Gallup, New Mexico is number 3 in the nation for missing Native American women. Now, a lot of the missing people that have been found on the reservation, I say 25% of them have been sacrificial. And a lot of them are blaming Satanism, which is getting big on the reservation, that they are putting our Native American women as sacrificial, I guess, lambs. I guess that's how you would call it. Now, how does that work would that be like LaVey's teaching or Crowley's teaching or?
No, that's nothing. That's projection. That's projection. Satanists don't act like that. Satanists don't do that. And you'll find that most of the accusations of sacrificial killings never existed. I mean, this happened in the 1980s with the McMartin preschool trials, where these people were rounded up because of sacrificial killings. They find many years later it never existed. Now, I don't know what happened with what you're talking about. I don't know any of the information on that, but I often find that because I research these things and find that it never actually happened. But it's an easy scapegoat. So Satan's always the scapegoat, right? It's like something bad happened. You know, every time a priest molests a child, oh, Satan, the devil must have been speaking to him. You know, it's like, no, take responsibility for your actions. You know, and there is something called the Violence Against Women Act that went into effect to protect tribal women, because basically if someone that wasn't of the tribe was abusing a woman, they couldn't be prosecuted. They could avoid jurisdiction. Well, that changed relatively recently so that people could be prosecuted by the tribes for these types of crimes, or the federal government could. So I think that's trying to curb these acts of violence against people on the reservations. But as far as sacrificial killings, I've not heard anything about that, but I would like to look into it if you've got any information, because I usually doubt that that's actually happening.
Now, do you think it's just a scapegoat, just to put, again, we'll blame it on them, you know, quote, them, as in Satanic Temple or Satanic believings? Is that what you think is going on there?
Yeah, absolutely. Because Michelle and I we've been part of the Satanic community for years, and nobody that we know that identifies as a Satanist would ever do something like that. I mean, that's more of a Christian thing to murder because God told them, to molest children. These are all Christian things, and these things always get projected onto others when they're the ones committing these acts.
Now, so you said that you have Native American friends who are Satanists right now. Could you give us a little bit of information about them and why they joined the Satanic Temple?
Do you want to talk about that, or should I, Michelle?
I mean, I can't really speculate as to why somebody who's Native American would join. I mean, other than the reasons I stated earlier, where, you know, they found that, you know, Satanism resonated with them more than, you know, Christianity did. And, you know, they were able to, you know, relate to the adversary archetype. So, I mean, it's just as asking, you know, why did so-and-so came to Satanism? It's hard to say. You know, you can assume, you know, their background has something to do with it, but other than that,
I don't think there's even a right answer for that, you know, because, you know, I'm trying to put myself
I did talk to one. I did talk to one gentleman about it who said he didn't like how what happened when his family kind of gave up those Native traditions and they started going to church and things like that. He said things changed after that for his family in a negative way, and that was his resentment. So that's the one personal story that I've heard.
Okay. Well, you know, I can understand it, because, you know what, all across the reservation here right now, there's like a mission within every 20 miles. There's always a church mission there. You know, they're always getting Native Americans into the church there, and slowly, a lot of our Native American rituals, such as the peyote meeting there, you'll start hearing the guy start singing and saying God, Jesus in the peyote meeting, when that never even happened, you know, before 1492. So, you know, it's kind of it's mind-boggling. But when they give up and stuff like that, they'll always go back to the medicine man and try to get that prayer. Then when they get done right, they'll go back to the Christian church there. So it's kind of crazy. Now, how many members of the Satanic Temple do you think are Native American?
Ooh, that would be kind of impossible for us to say, because we don't ask demographics when people join.
Okay.
So I wouldn't know. And the thing too that I found with a lot of the tribal members is some of them are a lot more, I guess, percentage of a culture than others. And I know that's been an issue on some of the tribes with deciding who's, you know, an actual member of the tribe. So I think a lot of people don't even know, you know, what their lineage is or what have you. So, and we don't ask. So it would be possible for us to say it, especially there are so many tribes across the United States that I'm sure there's probably tribal members, at least a few in every chapter or in certain states, you know, but here in Arizona, we definitely have a lot of tribes. And I know that it's been relatively popular, you know, and a lot of tribal members are in the metal community and things like that. And those are a lot of the communities that kind of overlap.
Yeah, do you think, is it more of the tribes that are like suburbs of the Phoenix area, of the Tucson area? Because, you know, when some of the Satanists show up on the Navajo reservation, let's say Window Rock, Arizona, and the heart and the meat of the Navajo reservation there, we're talking about way out in the boonies, the hills have eyes area, where where Satanism is starting to come up.
Well, okay. I would say that it's probably not really Satanism. That might be what I call the reactives, where they're doing stuff that people that live out in the hills do, regardless of the culture. And they're not really tied into a community. They're not tied into a community, and they've seen movies where things like that happen in the name of Satan. And it's just, sensational Hollywood stuff, like Michelle, I think, was about to say.
Yeah, I blame Hollywood for a lot of the, when you see churches being vandalized or something, like, I just see a teenager who just saw, Lords of Chaos in the movie theater and thinks, oh, this is what Satanists do. I'm going to go do this. And it's like, no, Hollywood has played a huge role in, basically defaming, what Satanism really is by making it seem like, we do sacrifices and everything that we do is in order to, turn around what's in Christianity and, make it bad. And that's not what our mission is. That's not who we are.
That's kind of like how we don't do things are stereotyped as us saying how,
Yeah, or the savage archetype. That whole crazy Western savage archetype. It's just one scapegoat is another scapegoat. You know what I mean? There's all scapegoating.
You know what? One of our great friends here, by a heavy metal band by the name of I Don't Conform, did filming and recorded an album in Norway. And actually, I'm sorry, Finland. And he was saying that a lot of the people were freaking out on them, that they were Native Americans. They still asked if we lived in teepees, And it's kind of crazy. A lot of people still think we live in teepees, which, not for Navajos, but as Native Americans in general, Some people didn't even know that we're still alive. That's what, according to I Don't Conform, we're like extinct to a lot of people in Europe.
Yeah, so you understand how these things happen. Then it's something that I've read recently. It's called familiar ignorance. It's like just enough to know this, that, and the other, and then you form an opinion, and that opinion solidifies when you don't actually know what it is. But then you put that lens on it whenever you see it, whether it's the native culture that you think you've heard of, or Satanism, or whatever it is. There's a lot of that when you're in any kind of minority position for a culture or religion.
Because we got another question here from the audience that says, what does Sabbath mean in the Satanic Temple? What does the word Sabbath mean?
Well,
like sabbatic, or
I have no idea.
Like the Sabbath, like Sunday, isn't that's a Christian terminology. Like that's what they call their holy day on Sundays. Like why would that mean anything to us?
Here's your answer.
Here's the thing. We don't adhere to a lot of specific traditions. A lot of us say that our birthday is our highest holiday, but that's in the Satanic Bible. Some people in the Satanic Temple don't adhere to that. So I don't know. I think when it comes to these holidays or holy days or things like that, it's very loose.
Okay, that's agreeable with us because Native American, unless you're traditional, Sunday's a Sunday. It's a day for us to drink beer and have chicken wings. Watch football.
Well, same for us. We do the same thing on Sunday. So there you have it.
Hey guys, we got another question here. It says, what is there anything expected to give up or to sacrifice to be part of the community of Satanism? I'm pretty sure you answered this earlier, but I think this is a new listener.
If that question's about tithing, is that? Are we talking about like literally sacrifice, or we don't really have dues or anything like that?
I think that's probably what they want to ask, because in church, you got to give up $10, $12 here, or they get 10% of your check you got to give to the church or something like that. I'm guessing that's probably
it's called they call that tithing. So tithing, membership dues, whatever you want to call it. We don't really do that. So we ask for support in certain ways, donation. If you want to donate, if you want to help out with a campaign, but we don't ask for people's financial support to be part of it.
Okay, well that's good. That's because what if you're broke and you go to church and then that whatever they pass around is right in front.
Then you don't get saved.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, guys. Now, as far as everything goes around, let's go back to the Native American community here now. Now, with you guys, with letting you guys know what's going on here, it kind of sounds like you guys are kind of just ended the topic there. A lot of people who are practicing on the Navajo reservation are just seeing what they saw on TV. But I think they're taking it to extreme if we're finding when there's bodies that are mutilated. You know, and they had the pentagram that's around the area and stuff like that are carved into rocks like that. So, do you think this is some of the problem with that's portraying on Hollywood that's coming over here right now? But it's kind of a big issue on the Navajo reservation now, though.
I mean, it's Hollywood stuff. I mean, it's something they saw in a horror movie. I mean, and people that are doing stuff like that have bigger problems. It has nothing to do with Satanism. I mean, it's like saying that someone molested a kid. It's like, oh, well, I saw that a priest did it. You know, it's like, I don't know. I don't see there's any real connection. I think people that are going to go out and mutilate a body, it's not because they're satanic, it's because they're demented. So, you know, whatever they throw on that is obviously because they've got issues. They want to shock somebody in the most horrible way possible, but that's not something that we're into. And I do think that's a TV thing.
I think it would be a great honor for you guys to talk about some of this stuff actually on the reservation. I would love to join you guys, and that way, you know, at least, you know, they can kind of cut you guys out of that, of being what they say Satanist is the problem on the Navajo reservation for some of these people who are getting who are getting sacrificed, you know, with all the stuff going around. Because, you know, I mean, right now talking to you guys, it just sounds, you know, it's a support. You guys believe in a certain way of living of life, just like what the Native Americans do.
Well, I mean, yeah, we go by our own path. It's definitely nonviolent. It's you know, it's community support, and we do like to fight systems. You know, we like to make sure that systems aren't hypocritical. We despise hypocrisy and things like that.
But I think, about, you know, like, let's say coming to the reservation and just talking about it and let the community know that you guys have no part of that. That's not what you guys represent. I think that would be a great idea.
I mean, if you have an organization like a secular community, an atheist community, like Stu and I, we have done talks in front of audiences, you know, just to kind of explain who we are and what we do. So if there's an opportunity like that, we'd be open to it.
Okay.
Well, I don't feel the need to go to debunk or make defensive gestures or apologize for something that has nothing to do with us. I mean, there's that aspect of it. Like, I would like to come at we like to come at it from like an educational perspective, but I don't want to. You know, sure. It just sounds like you got a witch hunt. It sounds like you guys have, you know, what you're describing is essentially a witch hunt going on, which, you know, that's something we don't like to participate in.
Okay, well, that makes perfect sense, though. I mean, because right now, you know, I'm going to replay, you know, what we talked about here today and let people know. I mean, this is not what's actually what you guys are portraying. Now, let me ask you this here: that's you know, you guys are out of the picture there. Now, what about LeVay's followers and the Crowley followers? Would they be doing something like that there? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is that something they would, or how can I word it politically correct, if there is a politically correct way to say it?
No, they wouldn't do that. Demented murderers do that. That's who does that. It's not a cultural thing of people in black robes killing people. I mean, that's ridiculous. And if it happened, it had nothing to do with our religion. That had to do with a very disturbed person.
Okay. I should get that out there, guys, because you know what? A lot of people on the reservation are listening right now, and a lot of them are trying to interpret for their elders right now to let them know exactly what's going on with Satanism there. So a lot of what basically has come down to is this here is a lot of people are trying to reenact what's going on television there and trying to put the blame on somebody when they actually just are demented themselves there, it sounds like.
That's a very concise way of saying what we said, yes. That's right.
Okay, we got another question. It says, does the church believe in black magic for the good of the people?
The Satanic Temple does not believe in the supernatural. So, no, we do not believe in black magic, white magic, or any magic, for that matter. we do have ritual practice, but as we were talking about before, we try to separate the supernatural from it intentionally. So, no, we don't believe that magic is a real thing.
Awesome, guys. Awesome. Appreciate it. Hey, guys, you know we're coming up here on time here right now. time has flown by so fast here. I know you guys, I'm sure, are working right now. It took an hour out of your time here, guys. I would love to have you guys back on the show, but at the same time, also, I would love for you guys to just go on the reservation and do a little bit of education for a lot of the people out there right now, because, I think that would help as far as the Navajo Nation. I think that would give a lot of answers to exactly what, the Satanic Temple is about, what you guys represented, because, the more education that us as Native American people can understand about what's going on, the less we'll be scared. I guess the people will be scared too,
Yeah,
Absolutely.
one thing that I'm curious about, and I'll hit you up about this later, but I want to see exactly what you're talking about first. I'm sure there's some accounts of what's happening, and what you see often is that there's patterns of this stuff, because of exactly what you were saying, because they saw it on TV and they're mimicking something. So, at any rate, we can definitely talk about that.
For sure, guys. I'll definitely I'll send you some of the stuff that we have over here, Stu, there, and then we could talk about that a little bit more, guys. Hey, guys, you know what? I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for you guys being on the show here. It was an honor. It was a pleasure talking to you guys here, man. Once I come down to Phoenix here, man, we got to go cheer for the Denver Broncos and have some chicken wings. What do you say?
All right. Indulgence.
Sounds good.
Hey, guys. Hey, Michelle, you have any last words for our audience out there?
Hail Satan.
Hail Satan.
And go watch our documentary. It's called Hail Satan with a question mark.
Yes. Can you guys tell us a little bit about that and let the people know where they can actually watch that there? Because a lot of people have been asking me about that.
It's all online.
They can go online. HailSatanFilm.com has all the ticket sales and at all the available theaters across the country. And in regards to Satanism and education, people are welcome to go to the Satanic Temple Arizona.com website. Under our FAQ, I've linked our YouTube channel, which has a lot of really good playlists in regards to satanic lectures, philosophy, stuff like that. So if people want to learn more about Satanism, the information is available, and it can help debunk some misconceptions that they might have.
Definitely. Stu?
Yeah, I'd say a good start is the internet, and now we have a feature film that's out all over the place. I think watching that, it's an hour and a half. It's really concise about how we started and where we're going. I think that'd be a great start for people, and it's pretty exciting for us. Michelle and I are both in the documentary.
Nice. Now, let me ask you this here. How many people right now in the country are actually actual Satanist practitioners, but they don't know it? I should say. Because,
we get that question a lot.
Everybody, my friends there, they're literally Satanists, but they don't know it. They don't realize it,
Well, I'll leave it with this. Satanism is considered what's called a coming home religion. What that means is you don't have to change anything. All of a sudden you realize, oh, wait, I've always been like this. I just never knew it was called that.
For sure.
If you have to think about it too much, you might not be a Satanist.
You definitely guys made a lot of people's mind think here today. A lot of questions have been answered here. I'm pretty sure it's only going to get more questions that I'm going to be receiving here right now, because my messages have not stopped blowing up, guys. Again, Stu, Michelle, I really appreciate you guys being on the show here on Still Savage Radio, guys. Hey guys, that's coming up here at in about another hour here. We have Cujo Wolf here is going to be making a huge announcement with his next interview, guys, coming up. Again, guys, thank you for listening to Still Savage Radio on SSRlive.com. I want to thank all our listeners. We are pushing almost 24,000 people right now listening and tuning in here right now, guys. So Great job, guys. Thank you very much. And we're going to hear some more music, guys. We got Dio coming up right now, the next 4 songs on the station that rocks the nation, Still Savage Radio. Yeah. Ow!
The id, the ego, and now...
Now crank it up, Still Savage Radio, and let's rock.